welcome to Baachu Talk Equity Matters, the fiercely passionate podcast that champions diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging through the power of human leadership stories. Brace yourself for inspiring tales of fearless DEI advocates across the globe who dare to challenge the status quo, pushing boundaries and sparking change every corner of our world. Today, I have the honor of hosting an exceptional guest. We have Beena Pallical, a catalyst for change in marginalized communities and a dedicated advocate for gender equality. With unwavering determination, Beena has ignited policy shifts within both the central and state governments in India, advocating for the inclusion of Dalit women in policy formulation. Beena is an intersectional feminist and a Dalit woman leader, and currently the General Secretary of National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights, NCDHR, DAAA. After about a 10-year stint in the corporate sector marketing, she decided to move to the social sector because of her interest in human rights and taking up social causes. Over the last 13 years, she has been with the NCDHR working on Dalit economic rights. Her focal point remains economic justice, meticulously addressing gender equity, targeted budgets, fiscal accountability, and governance. For the past 5 years, her energy has been channeled into enabling youth to access education, yielding scholarships for over 100,000 students, just 1 lakh students across 10 different states in India alone. She also holds the helm of Asia Dalit Rights Forum, ensuring Dalits' concerns reverberate on both regional and global platforms. A member of the board at Victims Advocate International, Beena champions intersectionality as the bedrock of women's economic freedom and gender equality. Her impact resonates globally, notably through her work with UN mechanisms like OHCHR in Geneva and the High-Level Political Forum in New York. As a pioneering Dalit woman, she has been a frontrunner in the Sustainable Development Goals, emphasizing marginalized voices and equitable financial management for their attainment. Her journey amplifies Dalit and Adivasi voices through international seminars, cultivating stronger policies for effective implementation, forging a brighter future for the people she represents. Beena, that's unbelievable and inspirational. Thank you for joining us, and let's talk us through your journey. Welcome to Baachu Talk Equity Matters.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go back to the very beginning, Beena. Where were you born, and let's talk about your early life.
So I was born in a small village in Solapur in Maharashtra, but my family comes from Kerala. So they migrated, my mom and my father migrated from Kerala to study in Maharashtra. And we are 2 siblings, so myself and my sister, we were both born in this small village called Kasar Sirsi in Solapur in Maharashtra. And most of my life my hometown is Pune. Most of my life I lived in Pune and was brought up there because my family lived there. My father, it was difficult for us to go to school in the villages while we were growing up because there were no English medium schools. So we stayed then mostly with my father in Pune. My mother was a nurse with the government, so she was always transferred around, different villages. So for a more stable, for the education, we moved to Pune, where my father was working.
How was the education in Pune? You already relocated from Kerala to Maharashtra, and Pune, moving from Solapur to Pune for English education. Talk us through any early memories of growing up in Pune and Solapur.
Yeah, so I went to mission school set up, by Christian missionaries, and the school was excellent. It was a neighborhood school that had, a lot of people from different neighborhoods. So we had, people of our, the person who was a gardener in the school. There was also a college there. So their children studying with us, and the richest business people in the city, their children studying with us. So it was quite a good diverse mix. And we also had a lot of students from Africa, the Arab countries who were also coming there as children, staying in people's houses just because they also wanted to have a good education. So I really enjoyed as a child because it was so diverse, it was so inclusive, and I enjoyed my childhood actually because culturally, and we had a lot of people from states in India that others would not have an opportunity, like from the Northeast. We had a lot of people from the Northeast as well studying from us. So we grew up speaking some of those languages, speaking so many and understanding so many cultural differences. And I really wish that every neighborhood had a school like that, because we grow up so culturally strong and so aware that we can be people from diverse backgrounds. Yeah.
Got it. So growing up in Pune, doing your schools there, did you end up and did your higher education also around the area where you lived in?
Yes. So I went briefly to Chennai for 2 years because I wanted to protest being in the same school all my life. So I took off when I was 13 or 14, and my father was quite nice to allow me to go. I mean, both my parents. But yeah, so I did a stint of 2-3 years in Chennai. And then I did my college in Pune University. I mean, the university, but the college was symbiosis. I did my bachelor's of economics. At that time, it was, people were not happy that I chose this field. My father wanted me to be a doctor. Other people had so many other wishes, but I chose the most banal subject that people thought was terrible until I also felt, why did I take economics? Until I went abroad, and I remember going abroad and people saying, wow, you've done economics. That's like fantastic. So, when we're growing up, there are only two streams you can choose, either medicine or engineering.
Yes.
But yeah, so I did my bachelor's in economics from Pune University. The college was symbiosis. Yeah.
Got it. And what was your very first job that you took after completing your education?
So after that, I did a master's after my bachelor's in economics. Then I did a master's, and I'm a 70s kid. 80s was the time when everybody wanted to go to the US and to UK and Australia. There were so many. What are they called? These not exhibitions, but these where universities come to India and recruits to take students. So I attended many of them, but I was like, I don't want to go to US. I got to go to Australia. I mean, I got admission in some universities, but somehow I wanted to go to a country that was probably not so popular, and I was a hardcore romantic. So I quietly went and told my father, like, can I choose to go somewhere else? And he said, well, I promised. I mean, he had always told us, both the girls, that he would support us for studies, till we are able to stand on our feet. So he said, it doesn't matter what I do, but I will support your studies. And once you get your studies and start working, don't come back to me. He's like, he was very clear about it, though we were daughters. And so he said, okay, we'll try. And then I chose Italy. I said, I want to go to Italy to study. And my father also thought I was like a little bit crazy. And then my mom is always supportive. Okay, whatever, my father is the one who weighs all the options. And then finally I convinced my family that to send me to a country that didn't speak English. At that time, nobody spoke English. And I did my MBA there. I did my master's in business. And my first job was there, where right after my MBA, I worked in a media company as a junior accountant, where you get these not the creative side of it, but the accounting side, where you have clients, and then they give you this much budget, and then you have to say, okay, how much budget goes for TV ads, how much budget goes for based on the footfall, where will you put the ads in the city, etc. So that was my first job. Yeah.
Like Italy, When was this, Beena? 2000, early 2000s, is
No,
it?
late 1998.
98, my God.
899, yeah.
Wow, I don't, that's very early, that to Italy, my God. Okay, how good are you in your Italian?
Abbastanza. Okay, I'm fine. Yeah, I speak it well. I learned fluently. And now, because I don't converse much, but you give me one day and I'll be back to like speaking English. Yeah. I love languages. I love learning languages. So I speak.
That's nice.
Hello?
That's nice. I mean, like, very well done. I mean, like, I was in Italy just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to, obviously, I learned Spanish a bit and French a bit, but not Italian. But some of it's a beautiful place. I think 1998 would have been amazing, and nice.
Can you see me? Because from my side, it looks like I'm frozen.
Oh yeah, you are actually. Stop. Continue, Beena.
Yeah, so I like learning languages. So I learned the language like in 6 months, I think it took me, but I said, no, I can't be in the room and not understand what they're saying. So, yeah.
Wow. So, relocating totally to a different country. Obviously, you're used to it. At the age of 13, you left to Chennai, you did your studies there, and here you are doing MBA in Italy. So how long were you there in Italy, and what comes to your mind? Any pleasant memories that you have on Italy?
Oh, yeah, I had a lovely time. I was there about 2 to 3 years, and it was fantastic. Like, also because I love eating, I love good food. So it's a place where, you get really good food. And it's also such a beautiful country historically as well, the beauty of the way they've constructed the architecture, and then of course the people are great people there, very little bit similar to Indians, they like to come together, they like to eat together. I like those things, so I really enjoyed. I think it was a pleasant experience. Yeah,
totally. So which part of Italy were you there?
So I was in a place called Viareggio initially, which is like near Pisa. It's along the coast, and then I moved to Milan.
Got it. So every time you cross Pisa, did you try to put it? I'm sure there'll be enough pictures of you.
Yeah.
Milan is very fashionable and very busy place compared to Pisa. So how was the transition to Milan, and talk us through what brought you back from Italy to India?
Yeah, so at that time, Milan is like any city, I think you would say, like London, Milan, New York. I think they're all like big cities. They're very urban, it is intimidating initially when you go to these big cities, but then eventually I think it grows into you. And I think I'm not so attached to places. I'm very attached to people. So it's easy for me to move on. I can just pack up and say, okay, I'll go. I don't. So if there are good 2 to 3 people along with me, good friends, family, I'm fine. I can live anywhere in the world. I don't, I'm not like most people get attached. I don't. So it was fairly easy for me to just keep moving. But at that time, it was Berlusconi's regime, and he was extremely, anti-immigration. So we couldn't get work permits, and it was becoming difficult. So then I came back. Yeah.
Came back to Pune?
Yeah, back to Pune.
So how was the transition back? Living abroad for a few years meant like you're coming back as a totally different person, and India might have changed or could be very well the same. How did you settle back, and what happened next?
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether I'm in London, New York, Delhi, or Solapur for that matter. I'm very attached to people. So I miss the people, but then because I value relationships and friendship a lot, I also am an easy person to get along with, so I make new friends. And like, I don't like Delhi as a place. It's a very rough place. It's too rough for me. I'm
Mm,
from South India, and
mm,
people are
mm,
so much nicer there.
mm.
So coming to Delhi was, for me, Delhi was a much bigger shock than other places, because they're extremely racist in Delhi.
Ah,
Yeah. They're
mm,
extremely color conscious. If you're dark, then immediately you're a Madrasi. They don't understand difference between, yeah, and nobody ever has referred to me by my color, except in Delhi. And they've called me a black person on my
mm,
face, random people on the street. And it was a culture shock for me. And also, things like, I mean, very weird, like everybody in India fasts, but in Delhi, if you go to some parts of Delhi to buy eggs on the days of fasting, like a Tuesday or Thursday or whatever, I think it's a Tuesday, they just don't serve you. And I remember going to the shop invariably I'll land up on that day, only the day of fasting, asking for eggs. And I remember the shopkeeper telling me, like, आप you cannot even, like, आप वो चीज का नाम भी मत लो मेरे साथ, नाम भी मत लो. Like, I can't even say ande, like I cannot say egg. Like, he sells it, but he sells it. And I'm not used to that. Pune, Mumbai, everybody, I mean, people can fast, but I've never known of them not selling eggs on that day. So yeah, I think Delhi was more of a very cultural shock for me, with this kind of, I was not used to this kind of.
okay.
Hmm.
Was this in early 2000s or
No, then I was like, okay, what do I do? Uh, what do I do after that? And then I went to, they at that time there was these visas they used to give for 2-3 years of work permit in the UK.
Hmm,
So then I went to Manchester. Yeah, and then I worked there for a few years. There I did, my MBA was in marketing. And so there I worked for a marketing company. Yeah, and it was okay. I mean, it was nice, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I did in Italy, because there was, more, I think, more exploring in Italy than in Manchester. And Manchester is a very dreary, always raining, boring place. But again, I had good friends. And then from there, I left and came back to India,
hmm,
wanting this change. That is when this whole my my mind was full of very uneasiness. I was not,
hmm,
I didn't think I was fit for the corporate. There was always this anxiety to do something else, to do something for people. And that is when I started exploring my options to move totally from the corporate to human rights, not so much Dalit human rights at that time, but human rights and social work. And that churning started happening there. And then I came back. When I came back, I did a stint of 1 year, just in marketing and recruitment, HR. And then finally I got this job, where I am now, 13 years back. The rest is history, like this.
got it. So was there any pivotal moment or an experience or an influence that kind of nudged you, what, enough of corporate career, now it's time to move to the social sector, or it just happened consciously within you, it's been there for some time and you just thought now is the time to move? Or was that any particular incident that kind of said, what, cutoff has happened?
So I come from a family that is extremely, my parents were always helping people, wanting. My father was always wanting people to, get better opportunities. And because Pune is, a more, college friendly, there are so many colleges and universities. People used to come, and he used to bring people home always. People used to stay. It was like a lodge. People will come there, the initial orientation happens, and they'll go to college or university. And it always, sometimes I mean, I kept thinking of why my father is doing that, or why my mother is doing that. And there were conversations around why that was happening. My father used to always say, we have to lift others up. We have to ensure so his family, not just his family, friends, people, he didn't know. And he was very supportive of people coming. And that was like a cultural upbringing for me that I grew up. Luckily, he was able to, I mean, he was from a very poor family. Both my parents were from very poor family. My father went to the hostel, I think, when he was like 10 or 11, and then, was on his own since then. So whatever little, he got little sponsorship from somebody who felt that they need to support him. And then he did odd jobs initially as a child growing up, like selling lemonade, things like that, to support himself. And then he worked half time, and then he did half time studies. So it was not like, you know how do you say, it's not like he wanted to, it's not like he had fees to pay. So there was the system where he could work and then, pay back in credits. So he did all that growing up. And my mom is also from an extremely poor household, single mother with two daughters. So they both beat these odds to come to Maharashtra. My mother didn't know the language. She didn't know, and she came not knowing Marathi, not knowing English, but took the chance, not knowing Hindi, but took the chance to move. I think because they wanted to have a better life, and they came. At this point, there was no discussion around caste, or it was just that they just wanted to survive, and so they came to. I'm sure it would have been extremely difficult for them, to come to a place, but they were brave and bold, and they came and they did this. They finished their education, and they started working. And so my father was able to give us that good education, was able to, because he always felt that didn't probably have the opportunities, and so he wanted us to have those opportunities, and he was very clear. And so he wanted also others to have that opportunity. And in this conversations where he used to bring people, there was always this, that they're our people, they're our people. What is our people is something that I didn't catch, that it was very, it was their own caste they were looking at, and that only later, as I look back, is when, oh no, he'll ask, are they our people? And most of them would be Dalits who he was supporting and helping. And that only later I understood that what is that our people, though we didn't have those conversations, because the identity that they carried and they preferred to carry was that they were Christian. And so that identity was what they carried, not the caste identity so much. In some way, maybe they took a flight as well, feeling that, that would not give them the opportunities that they would get. So, so there, I felt that kind of was in my mind, that, of course, being in that culture of where my parents supported a lot of people is something that, but one incident that stands out is, as a child, I was 10 or 12 years old, and every summer we used to go to the village in Solapur for to be with my mom, and for the summer holidays, 2 to 3 months we used to spend. And they have those hand pumps, where they pump water in the villages. And at that time, they, my mother's house didn't have tap, so we had to fill the pot and then take the water and keep. And I had a little small pot, and I went to the tap to fill water, and a leper came, and he didn't have his he didn't have his hands, so he had only from here, and his fingers he didn't have, so he couldn't, like, he was trying to pump, but he couldn't pump. So he asked me to help him pump. I took my pot and I ran away. I was so scared when I saw him. And I said, no, I'm not going to help. And I went away, not realizing that my mom was standing and watching what was happening. And then she said, why did you come back? I said, no, it's okay. There are a lot of people there. I'll go back, not telling her that I actually ran off because, he asked me to help. And then she said that you have to go back to that pump and not only help him pump the water, but you have to put it on him, like help him to put it on his shoulder and then take it back. And I was furious. And I said, I was only some 10, 11 years old. And I was like, no, I'm not going to go. Did you see him? And I was giving all kinds of excuses. And she said, well, you have a choice. You can just stay outside the house. You don't have to come in the house. And that for me, and then of course, eventually, grudgingly, I went back. And I did what she asked me to do, because she asked me to do, and because she said that I can't enter the house. But that incident sort of was a spark, or, was something that stayed on in my life. And that is what then I built on, because at that time, lepers, were also untouchables in a way, right? Nobody touched them. Nobody wanted to talk to them. And that incident sort of stayed in my mind. And then I built on that. And it was a big, huge lesson for me that, you can't treat people like that. And that was my first lesson in human rights.
I mean, like after nearly 13 years, you came back in a corporate sector, transitioned back to the social sector, and here you are with the NCDHR. Talk us through your journey with the NCDHR. What does NCDHR do? And talk us through this 13 years, any memorable moments, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I came to NCDHR, not knowing anything in the social sector. So I came from an environment and a culture that we were talking about targets, profit, loss, what are the sales numbers at the end, come on, get the sales number. If you can't, I'm coming from that to an organization that is working on social rights, on human rights, everybody is, calm and quieter and gentler and nicer and kinder. And I'm like, oh my God, where have I come? The language is different, So for 1 year, it took me a lot, to take in, because it's a total change, Bhaskar. It is like, what you have to change your mindset, you have to change the way you think, what is it that you have at the end of the end of the day, what is it that you're looking for, what is it that you're working for. So the first 2 years I was mostly observing, kind of observing and absorbing, what is happening, trying to change my language. I was very open to learning, and NCDHR is a space, and I'm extremely grateful and thankful for being an NCDHR, because NCDHR has given me who I am today, has made me who I am today. And people in NCDHR and the work and the communities that I work with. But when I joined NCDHR is when I started reflecting on who I am and what is my identity and what is the identity that I want to carry. Somewhere at the back of my mind, I had to have these conversations with my family. So NCDHR, the work that I do, provoked me, on what, how do I identify myself, and then I went back and I had this really, they say difficult dialogues, had this really difficult dialogue with my parents, and I asked my father, come on, you all never spoke about caste, but you did help people from a certain caste, where they said there are people, and those our people were from our caste. So then we had this conversation, and then my father narrated of his family and that we come from this caste and we're Dalits, and stories about my grandfather. And it opened a huge Pandora's box, and I'm so glad that I had those conversations. My father passed away 2 years ago. So I'm so glad that, 13 years ago, 14 years ago, we had this conversation about our family and how our family, overcame some of these how do I say, barriers, because you're from a certain caste, etc. And that is when I felt almost wholesome, that I'm doing what my community, I'm doing, and I'm working with my community and what my community wants. And it gave me more energy, it gave me more purpose in life, and then I realized that that was my calling all along. I had to do all the other things to be able to do this today. I'm sitting here today, I'm doing this work today because, I've been able to do all the other things. And those things prepared me for this, for reaching this point in my life. And so I'm thankful and grateful to NCDHR. NCDHR is an organization that was started in 1998, where they felt that there were many human rights activists, Dalit rights activists working in different parts of the country, and they wanted to consolidate their efforts at the national level, and so started the National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights, specifically looking at accountability, visibilizing the issue of Dalit rights. At that time, in the 80s and 90s, there were a lot of mass massacres. There's Chunduru in Andhra. There is, there was a lot of different. There was Kerlanji, there was, Mirchpur. So a lot of, this was, Mirchpur was a little later, but similar atrocities, on a mass scale. And then they felt that as we have to come together at the national level, and this was formed specifically looking at the issues of civil and political rights, so issues of violence, atrocities. And then later on, we felt that we cannot only talk about atrocities and violence. So then we also talk about gender justice. We also talk about inclusion in climate change and disaster risk reduction. We also talk about economic rights, governance, budgets. So then we, started also looking at these different specific different areas of work within NCDHR. We are a rights-based organization, so not a charity organization. So we work on policy, trying to implement the policies that the government have, but working also along with the government and working with the community to access justice as well as public entitlements.
And over the years, you might have visited a lot of places and you might have implemented some interesting policies. Talk us through some of the, or maybe the top 3, top 5 places that comes to your mind, top 5, top 3 policies, implementation that you found, what, I'm really proud about those things. Anything?
Yeah, so I remember when I first joined, and I remember going to a village, Kendrapada in Orissa. It was, there were floods, just floods had happened at that time. And it was, I think, around 10 days after the floods. So I go to this particular village and I'm walking down the village. So how the villages are still constructed in India, that, as you enter the villages, there are mostly the dominant caste communities. And then, as you move on, to the Dalit communities are, just away from all the resources, sort of. So as I'm walking down at the end of the village, I see that there's water, and that this lady is walking through the water, and she's got water till here, and her house is submerged in water. So, and and then I asked, where are you going? And she's like, I'm going to my house. And her house was still submerged 10 days after the floods had come. And as I was walking and I saw these pakka houses and the more concrete houses, these houses were all, there was tents in front of the houses. They had, all the facilities was supplied to them. And I could just see the stark difference between the Dalit community, whose houses were still submerged in water 10 days later, and the communities that belong to the dominant caste, and the very concrete houses. And, everything was cleaned up, there were tents in front of the houses. And I was so shocked when I saw that demarcation, that line of untouchability. And that is what, when we keep on telling people and people keep on saying, come on, India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, how can you say? But this is what is happening today. This is how it is happening. So that picture always stays in my mind. And then of course after that I've been visiting, we've visited so many villages. I've visited, I've been with so many victims or survivors of violence. And most of my work is on policy and budgets and governance. But I also go to the villages and go to communities. And so over the years I have seen some really difficult, how do I say, very difficult circumstances where the communities, like Hathras, for example, which became, globally known, where the young girl was raped and then burnt. She was raped and then she was killed, and then to make matters worse, the police also, cremated her body without any permission from the family. And sitting there and listening to her parents speak and her brother and others speak, it doesn't matter what education you have, it doesn't matter how great you are in your life, you just become, at that moment, you just lose all sense, because you're so helpless. You're so helpless. You don't know what to say. You don't know how to say. It doesn't matter what law is there, how educated you are. You can just become, frozen, because you're hearing somebody's desperate cry for justice, and you just stand there frozen, because you have no words to tell a mother who has just lost her daughter in the most, heinous way possible, right? So these are experiences that stay on with you, for hours and days and then years, and it takes you back. Sometimes wake up and you think about these instances, and it changes you as a person, and breaks you as a person, right? And so that determination to do something, when I wake up every morning, I'm thankful that I have this job and I'm doing what I do. But more than that, it's the there in your mind that you have to do something, whether it is, whether it is a legal assistance, or whether it is, ensuring that the policies are implemented. It's that is the picture that is there in your mind. In terms of policy, we had, there is a special provision called the SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act, which is a 1989 act that looks at, it's a special mechanism that if there are any atrocities happening between, atrocities happening on the Dalit or Adivasi community or tribal communities by the dominant caste, then this special mechanism is utilized. It's a very powerful tool, but we had suggested some amendments to that. And I was part of this delegation that advocated for these amendments. And finally, we got these amendments. It was a really huge success for us to get those amendments. The government accepted, and that has only strengthened the law. And I was there advocating for that, and that is another experience in another level, talking to government officials, not knowing what's going to happen. And this was just with the previous government, and it was another very interesting experience. So that policy we got through, which I would say is quite a successful story, for me, and being part of that delegation. But I also think in the recent past to look at the students accessing scholarships. For me, I always believe that if there's one scheme, if there's one program that can change the face of the Dalit community, it has to be the post-metric scholarship. It's one of the biggest schemes. We need more, such kind of schemes which will, enable them to access education, enable the youth to ensure that this is not school education I'm talking about, this is higher education, where they're able to access 10th, 12th and above. So that leads to either employment or entrepreneurship or etc. And for me, being able to enable the community, the youth, to access these scholarships in different states also for me is a big high, because at the end of the day, what is it that we want? We all want a good education. We all want a good job. And I have seen in my own family, my extended family, where one person studies and maybe goes abroad or becomes a doctor or becomes a nurse, she or he pulls the whole family out of poverty, pulls the whole, and that is like magic, and if we are able to do that, I think, it gives another, it's another feeling to be able to do that. So I think that, yes, this government does have good policies, and there is a huge gap, and that gap we want to sort of fill in and say, okay, how can we support and help in the students accessing scholarship, or even families accessing other schemes?
Totally, Beena. I think thank you for sharing. Again, educating or giving scholarships or facilitating scholarships for nearly 100,000 students in 10 states. That's 100,000 families that could benefit out of whatever they are facing at the moment. I think these things are really powerful. While doing all these things, Beena, I'm sure you might have faced some of the challenges or opposition you have faced. How you respond to those situations? Anything comes to your mind?
Oh, lot of opposition. When I first came to this job, uh, you know, our own people as well, the community as well, but more other people, that they want to see a woman who is, not modern, not speaking good English, they want to see, and they want Dalit women to remain like that. Maybe if I was clad in a sari and I was, a little bit more meek, and, who's this woman who has suddenly come out of nowhere and, she's speaking okay English, she's speaking okay Hindi, she's not dressed, maybe in a salwar kameez or a sari. And that for me was very difficult, because people was like, activists should be dressed be in a certain way. That for me was very difficult, because people would look at me with those lens that, are you, what this girl is like, she's not wearing a sari, or she's not carrying a jhola, what is that, jhola, or bag. And that typical that really went against me to a certain extent. That was one thing. Secondly, as a woman, and also as an empowered woman, it's difficult for men to sort of accept that, and it's more difficult for women to also accept it. So women who I thought would support me didn't support me, because they felt that I was a threat to them. But I always felt, once I started doing this work, that for somebody who has the skills that I have, maybe, I can use it to the best of my ability in a space like this. But even women wouldn't and for me, that was a big shock, that women wouldn't support women. You don't have to support me, but don't bring me down. And that was something that I felt. But more, the men wouldn't look at me. I remember I used to talk to them, and they used to say, okay, I'll talk to this person because this person is a male person. Yes, I'll talk to that person. You don't worry. And I used to come home literally crying, because I couldn't get through these men who have been in the movement. In one way, I wanted them to accept me, because I'm still new in the movement. On the other hand, this is the work that I'm doing. I want them to respect that. It took me, and my colleague who was the founder of NCDHR told me, Beena, you just have to navigate. You have to push. And somehow he helped me. He used to say that when they used to call him, he used to say, I'm no longer there. You have to talk to Beena. She's, so somewhere he used to say that, no, I don't talk to me. You have to talk. And eventually, slowly, I started pushing my way. And I used to tell these men, no matter what they used to say, they used to not even look at my face when they're talking. They'd be like looking here and there because they don't even want to acknowledge that maybe you have this little knowledge. Maybe, it was so difficult. And yeah, it was so difficult. And then finally, I used to say, to hell, I'm not going to allow any man to be, to come in between me and what I have to do and define who I am. Nobody can define who I am. I have to define it for myself, whether I have to fly, whether I have to run. And slowly, I started, it didn't matter even if they didn't talk to me, but I used to engage with them. I used to say, okay, I started writing, I started talking to them, picking up the phone. Like once if they don't answer, I used to and then today they call me, they don't call the others, they call me. So somewhere, I pushed my way, I kept pushing my way. It took a lot of energy initially, took a lot of tears. It took a lot of, coming home and wanting to quit. Many times I have said, maybe this is not the job I want to do. I want to quit. Yes, I had a responsibility to my community and a responsibility to the people, I'm working for. But then this really pulls you down sometimes. But then I didn't stop there. I said, doesn't matter, if people are threatened by me, there's nothing I can do. I have to do what I have to do. And thankfully, I have, many of those people who ignored me, who didn't take my calls, who thought that I was a newbie and didn't know anything, today call me for advice. So somewhere maybe the tables have changed. Yeah.
Totally. I think, as you rightly said, you stand at the crossroads of what we call an economic justice and then the gender equity. What is this intersectional feminist approach, Beena?
Yeah, so see, all this time, there are many Dalit women who have done excellent work, over the years. There's a lot of names I can take: Ruth, Manorama, Manjula, a lot of people, who have created, they've really broken the walls of injustice. They've really broken, they've, like they say, smashing patriarchy. They've really hit patriarchy on its head. A lot of the work has been around violence and atrocities, violence against women. I felt that I had to look at something beyond that, because there is already a lot of scholarship on that work. And so I felt that where my niche and where my studies and where, what I know, I did economics, and, I'm coming from a corporate environment. And somewhere I felt that looking at, in peacetime, we need education, we need housing, we need, entrepreneurship, ability to, start an entrepreneurship initiative. We need housing. So all these things we need, and how are we going to get it? If we need to talk something beyond just violence. We need to talk at what are those policies that are there. But then when I looked at that landscape of economic justice, I looked at the landscape of what are the policies and who are the people. It was only men. There were no women looking at saying, okay, come on, how much is the budget? What is the budget that is there? There were no women doing that, because it was not, quote unquote, a women's thing. It was mostly men talking. So that is one area that I felt that I had an advantage, that I could make use of my skills in that area, and I could really do some good work there. And so looking at this whole aspect of governance and budgets, and there is a specific budget allocation for Dalits and Adivasis in this country, which is targeted budgeting. So there's a specific budget as per the population proportion for the Dalit community and the Adivasi community. So I took that one tool to look at it, work around it, and felt that there had to be more women, in this field. There had to be more women talking about budgets. They had to, how can we get a perspective? How can we bring in the intersectional aspect of gender when we don't have any women on the table? So there is a saying, right? If you're not on the table, then you're part of the menu. So I wanted women to be at the table, and that's what I'm trying to do. So today we have a set of 50 to 100 women who can talk about this policy, who can say, hey, what are you talking about? I have a colleague of mine who 5 years ago in UP, she used to go to the DM, district magistrate, or the collector for some schemes for the, just for the audience who don't understand the word scheme in this, when I say scheme, the budget of this country is divided into different schemes, the housing scheme, or there's a scheme for, health, or there's a scheme to access, scholarship. So this budget is divided into different schemes. So she used to go, and they used to just not even talk to her. But then she started going and saying, hey, the UP budget has this much money, this much is allocated. You better ensure that this money, you better ensure that, this many applications that I filed for the women to access, or the men or children to access, you make sure that this is coming, because I know that this much money is allocated and this much money is supposed to come, and you are supposed to ensure and sign off on these applications. There came a time when the same collector used to tell her, Aap mat aao, don't come. You just send me the applications through someone, I'll ensure that. So the tables have changed when women started demanding their right and saying, not only demanding, but demanding with information, with knowledge, of that particular. And that change is what I'm hoping that would lead to more women in this space, that would lead to more women at the table looking at these policies, drafting these policies, looking at, can we have a better scheme? Can we have something for women in livelihood? Can we have something for women in health? So that is the change that I'm hoping to see. And more younger women we have trained over the years are demanding these rights. And when I see those young women on fire, is when I feel that my work has maybe a little bit of change.
Thank you, Beena. That's super inspiring. You have done groundbreaking work not only within India on policy, governance and stuff, but also bringing Dalit perspective to international human rights frameworks like the UN. Do you have any candid moment or any interaction that actually gave you hope, or perhaps even challenged some of your views? Or what impact do you think talking about Dalit perspectives in the international forum is going to make?
So a lot of people say that, why do you want to go international? This is a local issue. This is an India issue. Let India deal with it. Babasaheb Ambedkar also went to the UN, he also took this issue internationally. He also felt that, we need more, solidarity. But the UN is an international body that is responsible to ensure that countries, are doing good work, or that countries have to follow some of either its conventions that they have, or they, for example, we work a lot on the Sustainable Development Goals, which India is also, a signatory to. So we can look at how India is performing on SDGs. So many times people say, don't do this, don't do that. So my take on taking this issue to the UN is also a fact that we are not a small number. If we just look at it, that it's, I think, some 200 million people. Now we have crossed China, right? We are 1.4 billion, I think. So it's about 200,000 people. That's like, 200 million people, 200 million people, which could form a country in itself. So we're not a small community. So taking this issue, I was, one of the first women who started advocating at the UN, on Dalit rights. Not, no, sorry, let me take back my words, not at the UN, but on the Sustainable Development Goals. There have been many others who have gone before me. Actually, the Dalit issue was internationalized in 2001 at the Durban conference on racism and xenophobia in Durban, South Africa, where about 200 to 300 activists from India went there and made it an international issue. So it was not me, but it was NCDHR that, held this together and, and mobilized, mobilized the activists to go. So there has already been a path that was created by many senior Dalit rights activists. I'm just following one of those paths. But in the SDGs and the Sustainable Development Goals, I probably, from Dalit women's perspective, I probably was one of the earlier ones who started the engagement since 2014-15. It has brought definitely not just being there, but it has also given us a space now at the UN. For example, I'm just giving an example at the SDGs work in the UN. There is a high-level political forum that happens every year in July, where they have what is known as major groups and other stakeholders, where they have each constituency groups, which is civil society groups, but recognized by the UN. So we have a seat at the table, when they're announcing the declaration, we can give inputs, we have speaker slots, we have speaker positions if we are part of this constituency. So they've recognized us Dalits as one constituency, which has happened because of the advocacy that we did. So, a year and a half ago, they recognized us. So we are now a constituency called as a stakeholder group of communities discriminated on work and descent, which also includes Dalits, which includes communities like Roma in Europe, Burakum in Japan, Quilombola in Brazil. So different groups discriminated under work and descent. So it's a huge thing that UN is recognizing us as part of the stakeholder group.
Totally. That's very profound. Also, in your role as chair of Asia Dalit Rights Forum, have you encountered a tale from another country that felt hauntingly familiar or strikingly different to the experience of Dalits in India?
Everything is similar. Everything is so similar. What is happening in the neighboring countries. I don't want to take the names, but, South Asia in general, all the 5 countries, the situation is almost ditto. The response might be different, like in India, Nepal has better policies, that the policy, on the policy level, we're way ahead since other countries. But in a country like Sri Lanka, where, caste is not mentioned, or a country like Bangladesh, they're still figuring out, caste, they're still not recognizing caste and as Dalit. So there are challenges, but the impact of this is very similar. The discrimination is very similar. The untouchability that is happening is very similar. So my work with Asia Dalit Rights Forum, I've only become a chair in the last 6 months, but before that, I've been involved since 2014 with the Asia Dalit Rights Forum. And we've done some great work, both regionally as well as globally. But the issues remain the same. And sometimes we fail to call it modern slavery, but it is actually modern slavery that is happening. That is happening across these different countries.
Totally, totally. I think we talked in depth about equity. We talked in depth about gender equity, etc. But what do you do in your free time? How does Beena herself say?
Yeah, there was a time that I didn't do anything other than work, Bhaskar. I used to only work. I used to come back home, I used to live, my house was just like 2 minutes walking distance from my office. And I used to just walk home like 11, 12. And then it was time to just sleep, get up, go back to work, and then travel. But now I moved away from office, like 1 hour, 1.5 hour drive to the office, just so that I can, cut myself from the work. What I love doing, I love watching movies. So Netflix, if I get some time, I watch something on Netflix. I'm obsessed with music. So I have music in when I'm driving. I have music almost because I live alone as well. So it's almost like music is my best friend. It's there, it's in the background, it's happening. So I love listening to music, and I like hosting. So I like being with friends and spending time with friends. And whenever I'm a good I love to sleep. Whenever I get little time, I sleep off, because I can sleep anywhere and everywhere. So that's a good thing, right? Because I travel across different time zones and etc. So sleep is so important. So I like sleeping as well. But more than anything, I do get very little time to read. But that is something that I used to do growing up, and that's something that I'd like to improve on, spend more time reading. But yeah, reading, music, movies, talking. I talk a lot.
Veena, thank you. I think let's play a fun, light-hearted, rapid random fire question round, just so that we could get the other side of Veena. So you did mention your hobbies and interests. What's the most spontaneous trip you have ever taken? Fast responses. It's rapid random fire.
Oh my God. I don't know. Maybe I took oh yeah, maybe when I was in Italy, I had a friend who used to just take off, and we took off once to Florence or somewhere from Milan. Yeah.
Nice. And obviously you like reading. Do you have a go-to comfort book?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
What song always put you in a good mood?
Oh, I love listening to old songs.
Mhm.
So I'm a big fan of Michael Jackson. So maybe some of his songs.
Got it. So what's your favorite snack to share with friends?
Oh, snacks. I don't snack much, but if I were to snack, maybe banana chips.
Sure, that tells you where you're from. Is there a dish from your travels you have tried recreating at home and it went really well?
Yeah, I like this moussaka, which is a dish that is made with the brinjal. You say brinjal, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, brinjal and meat, this mince meat.
Are you a sunrise or a sunset person when it comes to traveling, or when it comes to doing all the activities?
I'm a sunset person. I cannot wake up in the morning.
Totally. What's the most memorable thing you brought back from a trip? Souvenir.
I don't know. Maybe I visited a group of Dalit women making things with bamboo, and I brought out this speaker. Like a speaker, like when you want to play music, and they made a speaker with the bamboo, like two bamboo put together, and if you put your phone, it just amplifies the music. Amazing, yeah. So a speaker that is not very expensive, yeah.
Other than that, is there anything that you keep very safe, something that's really memorable from the family that you deemed, oh, this is very personal and memorable?
A lot of things like that, but maybe a bracelet from my sister, yeah.
Is it something that you always pack no matter where you're headed?
My brush.
That's
I can't do without my brush, yeah.
Good response. Street food. Is there any street food you absolutely can't resist?
I like not pani puri, but they mix the. Okay, we'll say pani puri.
Good. Obviously, you work very hard, but suddenly you enter into the animal world. Which animal would you like to be for a day?
Lion, because I'm a Leo.
Good.
But my spirit animal is dolphin.
Oh, interesting. Have you ever checked why dolphin and what does it mean to you?
No, I'm just fascinated by dolphins.
Interesting. Interesting. So if you had a time machine, is there any era or any year or is there any decade where you would like to visit?
The beginning of time.
Beginning of time. Interesting. Got it. Yes. Which movie can you watch over and over without getting tired?
Actually, I can't watch any movie.
Huh?
Because the moment I start watching, I remember everything. I have a very good long-term memory. I don't have a good short-term memory. I have excellent long-term memories. I can remember my first grade friends, my teacher from my first grade, her face, everything, So for me, when I start watching the movie, I can remember everything, and then it's just a spoiled sport. So I can't watch movies more than once.
Got it. Got it. So what's the game you loved playing as a child?
We used to play this game called 7 tiles. We put 7 tiles, and then with the ball, you have to try and hit and then they chase you. That is one. And marbles. I loved marbles. So I used to go out with 1 marble and then win like so many marbles and come back home with a lot of marbles. So the boys used to hate me as a child because I used to win all the marbles.
If aliens landed on Earth, what's the first thing you would show or tell them about our planet?
Good question, but I don't know. Tell them that how bad we are as a human race.
Yes, come destroy us. We are so bad. We need a new to start from fresh. So which cartoon character would you want as your sidekick for a day?
Oh gosh, I don't remember their names.
Okay, which
Tom and Jerry, maybe.
Okay, that's good. Have you ever had a kitchen fail, cooking something and it went terribly wrong?
Yeah, always burning stuff because I'm doing like multiple things. So I put something on the stove and then I think I can do something else. And by the time I come, it's like, even the frying pan is fried.
Oh. So obviously you watch Netflix, and what's some of the TV shows or some of the documentaries or anything that you recommend for listeners to go and watch?
Okay, so I love murder mysteries, so I watched Blacklist recently. I finished watching it. It's like a series of these crazy people, but right now, off the top of my head, that's the only thing that comes to my mind because I just finished watching it. But I like this Korean, I don't remember. Yeah, it's okay. I don't remember the title.
Got it. What's your ultimate guilty pleasure dessert? Something that you can't resist.
I love cheesecake.
Cheesecake? Oh, all Western food.
Oh, I like gulab jamun. If Indian gulab jamun, I love it.
Good, good. So if you could dine with any historical figure, who would you choose to dine and what will you cook for that person?
I would like to dine with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and I'd cook for him a minced beef.
Minced beef, nice. You find a magic lamp. What are your 3 wishes?
Okay, so 1 wish for me, grant me the wisdom to make the right choices. But 2 wishes for the universe, considering that we are, climate change is such a big issue. So how do we reverse that? Maybe would be my next wish. And my 3rd wish would be for the people of this country, especially the people who are affected by caste and other forms of discrimination to ensure that we can also undo untouchability.
It's very, very powerful. Obviously, you travel a lot. Ever had a travel mishap that turned into a very funny story?
No, I can't think.
So
I'm sure there is, but I can't think.
You're very organized.
Oh, yes, I can. I can tell you one thing. So this was my first time in the US, in New York. And I was told many times, my sister lives there, so that I have to tip the taxi guy. And so I was like, yeah, okay, no problem and stuff. So I get off the taxi, and then I pay by card, and so I put in the amount. And then, you also add the tip, right? So I add the tip and then I get out. And he was like an Asian person who was driver. So I say, thank you. And he was like looking at me very angry. And I had no clue what was happening. And at that time, I don't know this cents and, like quarters and, just this is my first trip. And then he comes out and then he's like, so angry. And he's like, ma'am, what is this? Then I said, excuse me. Then he says that, at least you should have not paid me any tip. Then I'm like, what are you talking about? So he's like, you paid me 5 cents. So in my head, in my mind, I thought I had put $5. But I think it's a 0 point something, some mistake I made there. And I was so embarrassed. I just ran inside wherever I was going because I didn't know how to respond to him when he said that.
Totally. You ruined somebody's day, Beena.
Yes.
Hey, that's good.
Obviously, it's an honest mistake. Yeah.
It's hard when you travel to a new country, dollars to cents to pounds to euros, you name it. I mean, like, it's not easy. And again, that culture of different countries. In Italy, as you know, the service charges or tips is not included, whereas in the UK it's included. In the US it could be partly included depending on which state you are. It's hard work, and you do need to think and plan a lot of stuff in addition to your travel. That's great. So obviously you like music, you travel as well. So other than Michael Jackson, do you have a playlist? What's in your playlist at the moment?
On my playlist would be a mix of a lot of different genres. So I like listening to some Hindi music as well. Sufi music. I love Sufi music. Yeah. Bollywood has some good numbers. So when I'm feeling peppy, I play all the item numbers as well. And I have also some romantic music. But so Indian, definitely a lot of Indian. I listen to a lot of Tamil music as well. I love Tamil movies, music. And anything that is peppy, I like when I'm, really feeling up and about. I like to listen to peppy numbers and dance numbers. I love dance. I forgot to tell that I love to dance. So I like dance numbers when I'm feeling peppy and nice. Yeah. What else? I like Tina Turner a lot.
Very good.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, there is a dancer in you, so which at some point, sure, it will come.
I forgot to mention that.
Yeah,
I was nervous when you started this rapid fire round.
Don't worry. We normally go very random, but in this case, we just kept it under your interest just to keep you. We don't want you to be upset, Beena. We don't want you. Beena, I think in your life, from your parents who influenced you, especially your father who told you, who haven't even told you what's happening, but he was politely or quietly doing educating or actually orientation to young children when they were growing up. Other than that, you also made a lot of influences in your life. Talk us through who are some of your mentors or role models that have inspired you in your journey, and how did they influence you?
Yes. So I'll start from my family as well. I mean, both my parents, also because they come from, very humble backgrounds and were able to give us an education, both of them. But also some of the things so my mother worked very hard, and so hard work runs in our family, and I've watched them really, really work hard, both my parents. So They both taught me big lessons, but I also felt that my father went an extra mile even within the house. Like things like, he never allowed, he never, nobody, he never allowed my mom to wash his clothes. Till he was 80 years old, he washed his clothes by himself, where he never, allowed anybody else to wash. Or all the toilets in the house, only he cleaned the toilets in the house. So, little things like that that he did, sort of showed me that, there is something that he's thinking through, for the choices that he's made. So definitely, my parents. And of course, somebody that I really look up to and follow is Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was a Dalit icon, similar to Martin Luther King, who wrote the Constitution of this country. And whenever I'm down, I think of the struggles that he has gone through, to be able to do something at that time when he was alive. So he's somebody I really look up to. I look up to definitely people like Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela. They're all people that, I grew up reading. I grew up, looking up to them. Toni Morrison is somebody that I also follow and listen to a lot. People don't like me saying this, but I'll still say it anyway. I'm a huge fan of Oprah Winfrey. I find her character, I find her personality really inspiring for me as a woman. What she's able to do with her life, you know. She has so much to offer to the world from her experience and her journey. So she's somebody that I really look up to. The Bandit Queen in India, who's from an oppressed community, who was gang raped and then stood up against everybody to enter the parliament, is somebody that I, even without knowing who she was as a child, I admired what she was doing as I was growing up. And so, she's somebody that I look up to. I mean, there are so many I can go on naming, but these are some people. My mentor I'd like to mention is the Paul Divakar, who started NCDHR. So when I actually took over the organization from him, and he mentored me on Dalit rights a lot. So I should mention the work that I'm doing in NCDHR is also so he has personally mentored me and continues to mentor me. So yeah, I think for now, but
Yes.
I have a long list. I can't think of the names.
Totally, Beena. I think there's a lot of blessings in your life. As you touch more and more life, I'm sure your blessings is only going to grow. So the final few questions fast. So for a young Dalit girl or a young person listening into this episode, inspired by your journey, what story or wisdom would you like to share as she or this person, he begins their journey or advocacy journey?
I think there should never be a limit to what you can do. I think that whatever you set your mind to do, you can do, and the world will conspire to help you do that. So if you want to be an actor, if you want to be a scientist, if you want to fly a plane, it doesn't matter what is it that you want to do, especially young Dalit girls, I'd like to say this, that no matter what, don't kill your dream, have a dream and let that dream drive you. And I'm sure that, yes, there are challenges. There'll always be challenges, but they cannot be anything that can stop you if you have the will. And, I'm sure there are a lot of barriers. Caste is a big barrier, to access, but we can do it. I mean, if we put our mind to it.
Totally. Imagine we are looking at this, I'm meeting you 10 years from now, say 2033. What's your vision? Paint us a picture of what you dream for Dalit rights, gender equality, and India as a whole.
Well, we had a president, Dalit president. I hope that by 2033, we have a Dalit Prime Minister for India. If it is a Dalit woman Prime Minister, even better, but a Dalit somebody from the community. I dream that there is more and more young people are able to access education, employment. I dream that there'll be more and more younger women sitting at the table. There'll be more and more women who are pushing these barriers to access rights and entitlements. I can see even today, if you look at social media, you'll see that a lot of young people are out there. They're pushing the limits, they're pushing the boundaries. And I'm sure that by 2033 is 10 years from now, right? Yeah, there'll be more of that. And I'll be happy if I have a small part to play in this success story. Then I'll be super happy. But if not, I know that people will be able to fly. The only difference is that, if we give the same opportunities, every child will excel. It's, nobody's less or more. It's just the lack of opportunities and resources. And if they're able to have those opportunities, I'm sure every child will be able to fly.
Brilliant, Beena. That's so profound. Thank you. Beena, what's something that you're looking forward to in immediate future? Is there any upcoming project or initiatives that you're working on to further the cause of Dalit rights and women empowerment?
Yes, two things that I'm working on. One is I'm very excited about business and human rights, trying to look at how do we look at diversity and inclusion in the corporates. So we do trainings, we do capacity building programs to ensure that companies and corporations know caste, how does it play out in workspaces. So that is one thing that we're working on, and I'm really excited about that. The other thing is I'm also looking forward to more and more younger people taking up entrepreneurship opportunities and livelihood, setting up their own businesses. State is supporting, and we're trying to work with the state to ensure that more and more people are able to access this. So these are some of the things that I'm really excited about in the near future. Yeah.
Thank you, Beena. Beena, as we come to the episode, is there any part of your life or career, or is there anything else you would like to share to the listeners before we close the episode?
No, I think that, hopefully in the near future, I'm hoping that it does not matter what caste you come from, it does not matter what color you are, it does not matter. I hope we're able to give the same opportunities that everybody gets, despite where you come from, because it is a matter of dignity. But more than dignity, it is a matter of justice if we are not giving those opportunities. So I'm hoping that, people who are listening are able to make those small changes in your lives, or to make those small changes with people in India, it is caste, but, there's in UK also there is caste with the diaspora, but then they can also be race. So whoever that we are with, we hope that we will remove those how do you say, the practices of untouchability that we are that many of us practice in our daily life. And I'm hoping that we through these practices of equity, and we move towards justice for not just the Dalit community, but all communities who are oppressed due to different due to caste, due to race, due to gender, etc.
Brilliant, Beena. Thank you so much, Beena. Thank you for joining, and wish you, your family, and every lovable souls in NCDHR and everybody whom you touch all the success and good health. And I definitely hope to see you sometime soon.
Thank you so much, Bhaskar, for having me. All the best.
Thank you, Beena. So listeners, as we conclude our enriching journey with Beena today, we are reminded of her sheer power of resilience to the intersectional feminism that she talked about, which actually made a shift in my thinking. Beena's story is a beacon of hope, inspiring us all to look within and champion the causes we believe in. And let her wish all the very best in her tireless work at the NCDHR and to all her colleagues, and wish her all the success. And Beena, your pursuit of gender equality, not just within India, but abroad, is leaving an indelible mark on our hearts. Thank you. Thank you for lighting the way, Beena. Until next time, let's all be inspired to make our voices heard and push boundaries in our unique ways. Thank you. And I'll see you at the next episode with another guest who's shattering the boundaries and creating an impact. Thank you. I'll see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Baachu Talk Equity Matters. With every episode, our hearts grow stronger and our voices bolder. Let's carry this energy forward, relentlessly pursuing justice and uplifting the unheard. Stay connected for more inspiring episodes. Until next time, stand up, speak out, and transform the world with us. It's Bhaskar Sundram from Baachu Talk Equity Matters, signing off with unwavering determination.